This video covers section 9.3, simplifying expressions using the laws of exponents. Objective 1, simplify expressions involving rational exponents. The laws of exponents presented in chapter 5 applied to integer exponents. These laws also apply to rational exponents. Any number to the 0 power is 1. Negative exponents get flipped. Product rule, when we multiply, we add their exponents. Quotient rule, when we divide, we subtract their exponents. Power to a power, we multiply those exponents. And when you have something being multiplied or a product to a power, each one gets raised to that power. And a quotient, when you have an a over b raised to the r, each of the numerator and denominators get raised to the r. And when you have a quotient raised to a negative power, that's the reciprocal of the inside, so b over a. So when we say the directions simplify, we understand that that should mean we have to make all exponents positive. Each base occurs only once, and there are no powers written to other powers. Letter A, that is the product rule. We have a base to the 2/3 times the same base raised to the 5/6. So that says that we add those two exponents. 16 raised to the 2/3 plus 5/6. We get a common denominator to add those together, and 2/3 is going to be 4/6 plus 5/6, which gives us 16 to the 9/6. 9 over 6 becomes 3/2, and now we can apply the fractional exponent. The denominator becomes the index on the radical, so that's a square root of 16, and the 3 becomes the power. So we have the square root of 16 is 4, and cube that is 64. Letter B is the quotient rule. The quotient rule says to subtract the denominator's exponent from the numerators. So we'll have 4 to the 2/3 minus negative 5/6. Four to the 2/3 plus 5/6. 2/3 is 4/6 added to 5/6 becomes 4 to the 9/6. And 9/6 reduces down to 3/2. And now we have the index on the radical is a 2 or a square root. And we cube that result, giving us square root of 4 is 2, cubed, which is 8. This leads us to your practice problems. I encourage you to press pause on your video and work these out, and come back when you're ready to see the solution. Now that you've had a chance to work these out, I'll work these out with you. We have a like base, so we add our exponents 1/2 to 5/6. 1/2 is 3/6. So that gives us 27 to the 8/6. 8/6 reduces down to 4/3. So we have the cubed root of 27, which is 3 to the 4th power, which is 81. Letter B, we subtract the denominator's exponent from the numerators. 1/3 minus 5/3 is -4/3. So we take the cubed root of 8 to the -4, and the cubed root of 8 is 2. Raised to the -4 power is 1/2 to the 4th, which gives us 1/16. Example 2, simplify each of the following. Here we have a power to a power. Power to power says to multiply your two exponents, 2/5 times 5/4. The 5's cancel, and we're left with 36 to the 2/4, or 36 to the 1/2 power. That's equal to the square root of 36, which is 6. Letter B, we have a product raised to a power, so each of those factors, x to the 1/2 gets raised to 3/2, and y to the 2/3 gets raised to the 3/2. Now the power to power multiplies, so we get 1 times 3 is 3, and 2 times 2 is 4. The 2's cancel, and the 3's cancel, and you're just left with y to the 1st. So we like to write that as x to the 3/4 times y. This leads us to your practice problem, practice 2. I encourage you to press pause on your video and work these out and come back when you're ready to see the solution. Now that you've had a chance to work these out, I'll work these out with you. Power to a power, we multiply 3/2 times 5/3. The 3's cancel, and we're left with 4 to the 5/2, 4 to the 5/2. The denominator becomes the index on your radical. The numerator becomes the power. Square root of 4 is 2, and when I raise that to the 5th power, I get 32. Letter B, we multiply -3/2 by the power of 8. We multiply b to the 1/4 by the power of 8. -3/2 times 8/1. 2 goes into 2 once, and 8 4. That's a to the -12. b to the 1/4 raised to the 8th power. Four goes into 4 once, and 8 twice gives us b squared. Getting rid of the negative exponent, we put it in the denominator. And we have b squared over a to the 12th. Example 3, simplify each of the following. X to the -4/3 and y to the -2. We'll leave those alone for right now. And then we need to take x squared and raise that to the 4/3 power. And y to the 1/2 raised to the 4/3 power. X squared to the 4/3, these multiply. And so that gives us x to the 8/3. y to the 1/2 raised to the 4/3, those multiply. 2 goes into 2 once, into 4 twice, and that gives us y to the 2/3. Now we have x times an x, so those exponents add to each other. -4/3 plus 8/3. The y to the -2 times y to the 2/3, those add to each other. -4/3 plus 8/3 is 4/3. -2 plus 2/3 is -6/3 plus 2/3, which is -4/3. And so we get rid of the negative exponent now by placing it in the denominator. We have x to the 4/3 divided by y to the 4/3. They're not like bases, so there's nothing we can do to combine those. Letter B, the numerator, everything is raised to that 5th power. So we have 2 to the 5th power, x to the -1 to the 5th power, and y to the 2/5 to the 5th power. Two to the 5th is 32. X to the -1 to the 5th is x to the -5. Y to the 2/5 raised to the 5th power. These multiply, and so the 5's cancel out, and we're left with y squared. Here the y squareds will cancel out, and we'll take that x to the -5 and put it down in the denominator. And once they're next to each other, their exponents add, and we get 32 over x to the 7th. And this leads me to your practice problem, practice 3. I encourage you to press pause on your video and work these out, and come back when you're ready to see the solutions. Practice A. Now that you've had a chance to work these out, I'll work these out with you. We multiply like bases and we add their exponents. 3/4 plus 1/6 is 11/12, giving us 5 to the 11/12. Like bases and we divide, we subtract the exponents. 32 to the 6/5 minus 3/5. 6/5 minus 3/5 is 3/5. So we take the 5th root of 32 and cube that answer. 5th root of 32 is 2, and 2 cubed is 8. Letter C. We have a power raised to a power. Those two powers multiply. The 3's will cancel out, and the 4 cancels the 4, leaving us with 1/2. 100 to the 1/2 power is the square root of 100, which leaves us with 10. Letter D, we have a product raised to a power, so each of those factors, 3/2, gets raised to the 2/3 power, and the b to the 5/4 gets raised to the 2/3 power. We're multiplying these exponents. 3/2 times 2/3 is 1. 5/4 times 2/3, 2 goes into 2 once, into 4 twice. That gives us 5/6. Letter E. We have x to the 1/2 times x to the 1/3. Those will add to each other in the numerator. Like base, they add. The denominator, those are multiplying. 1/12 times 2 over 1. 1/2 plus 1/3 is 5/6. And 1/12 times 2 over 1 is 1/6. Now that our like bases are being divided, we subtract the exponents, we subtract the denominators from the numerators, which gives us x to the 4/6. We reduce that and get x to the 2/3. Letter F, we've got products raised to that power. So we have to raise the 8 to the 2/3, x to the 3/4 to the 2/3, and y to the -1 to the 2/3. Eight to the 2/3 is just the cube root of 8 squared. X to the 3/4 raised to the 2/3. The 3's cancel and the 2's cancel, leaving us with x to the 1/2. Y to the -1 to the 2/3 becomes -1 times 2/3, or y to the -2/3. Cube root of 8 is 2, and 2 squared is 4. X to the 1/2, and the y to the -2/3 will go to the denominator as y to the +2/3. Letter G, we have the numerator to the 1/2 and the denominator to the 1/2. So every piece, the 25 is raised to the 1/2, x to the 1/2 raised to the 1/2, y to the 3/4 raised to the 1/2, and then the denominator, x to the -3/4 raised to the 1/2, and y to the 1/2. 25 to the 1/2 is the square root of 25, which we'll just write as 5. X to the 1/2 to the 1/2, those multiply and leave us with x to the 1/4. Y to the 3/4 raised to the 1/2 gives us 3/4 times 1/2 is 3/8. And in the denominator, we have -3/4 times 1/2, which is -3/8. And y to the 1/2. Square root 25 is 5. And then that x to the 1/4 times the x to the -3/8 goes to the top as 3/8. Now, when we have a like base, we add our exponents. 1/4 plus 3/8 is 5/8. And then y to the 3/8 divided by y to the 1/2, those subtract. That's y to the 3/8 minus 1/2. Which is 3/8 minus 4/8, which is -1/8. We'll go ahead and place that negative exponent right back down in the bottom, leaving us with 5x to the 5/8 divided by y to the 1/8. Letter H. The 8 on the outside of the parentheses is by itself, but the 125 needs to be raised to the 2/3, the a to the 3/4 to the 2/3, and the b to the -1 to the 2/3. 125 to the 2/3 is the cube root of 125 squared. A to the 3/4, raise the 2/3, the 3's cancel, and the 2 cancels with the 2 in there, which leaves us with 2, a to the 1/2. -1 times 2/3, -2/3. So we take 8, multiply it by cube root of 125 is 5, and square that is 25, and 8 times 25 is 200. We'll have an a to the 1/2 and a b to the -2/3, which will then have to keep the a to the 1/2 where it is, and then we'll have divided by b to the 2/3. So we have 200 a to the 1/2 divided by b to the 2/3. This concludes the video for section 9.3, simplifying expressions using the law of exponents. Objective 1, simplify expressions involving rational exponents.